Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about, with no Sentai footage, would Netflix Power Rangers reboot be able to have the budget they need? So, one thing that I never thought about until just now when I read a comment was about the budget of the Netflix Power Rangers series. I was watching Ping Pong Flicks, I think his YouTube name is, and he was talking about how Power Rangers most likely won't resume until 2025 with the reboot because of the actors strike. I think he said the source was the new showrunner for Netflix or something like that. And so I'm like, man, no toys or shows in 2024? That's going to be like a bummer. But then I was looking down in his comment section and I read something. And somebody said if they don't use Sentai footage, they're going to need a heck of a budget for Netflix. And I stopped and I thought about that. I hadn't even really think about that. And the first thing came to my mind was CW, Stargirl, and other superhero American television shows. Now, I'm not saying that they have to have Sentai footage in order for the reboot to be good. That is not what I'm saying. I am also not saying that if they don't have Sentai footage to help with the cost and everything, then they won't have the budget to make something like extraordinary. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm merely just saying and speculating that when you go back to the whole Saban era Power Rangers, no matter what, Power Rangers is Saban's property, whether he still owns it or not. And Saban is a very rich billionaire, but he's a very cheap, frugal man. And Power Rangers is a very cheaply produced show. He had the brilliant idea of take Japanese fighting footage of the Power Rangers, or the Sentai people in suits, add that to the Power Rangers show, and also the Megazord fights, and then just film everything else around all that for the American footage. So the American footage always was primarily that of the civilian stuff, the cast, the characters, things like that. And everything else was pretty much Sentai, whenever the Rangers would be in suits fighting and then them being in their Zords. And every once in a while, they would actually film their own American fighting footage in the suits and everything. He did this because it was cost effective and he could save tons of money and he could film multiple episodes in one day. This is why some of the people left the show, because they said they just couldn't take that work schedule and they wasn't paid that much. That's another thing that cut costs. He wanted to keep the money for himself and whatever budget they need for the show. So he paid his actors nickels and dimes. Not only that, but back in the Fox Kids day, they would cast a bunch of unknown people, either as Power Rangers, villains, or civilians. In fact, a lot of people, that was their first gig in Hollywood, was Power Rangers. They never done anything before that, or they did something teeny tiny. And if you don't have a big name to pay a big budget to, you can keep the money. Now things changed in the Disney era because they got a bunch of people who were well known, not well known to Americans, but to that of New Zealand and Australia. But that's when Disney owned it and stuff. And so and then they would film, like I said, some American fighting footage. And whenever they did, it wasn't all that spectacular in the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger days, or even Alien Rangers, and even Turbo and Zeo and stuff. Normally, a lot of their American fighting footage, was very lackluster. It just comprised of them posing, throwing a punch, posing again, kicking, doing another pose, do a couple of cartwheels and flips, some more punches and kicking, and then some more posing and stuff. And so it was very lackluster, and it slowly started to build up to where it got a little bit better. But I remember in Turbo, they were just smacking people around and punching them and posing and throwing a few kicks, and that was really about it. It wasn't really all that really gritty fighting you saw in the Sentai footage. But I do remember one really good sword fight between Andros and Darkonda. and in space. That was an amazing American shot like footage. And then of course when they got into the Disney era, oh boy, they started filming. It was like in half. Like some of it was Sentai, but they would film a lot of their own like American footage type stuff over in New Zealand. And it was amazing. It was the choreography was so much more better and stuff. And for whatever reason, some fans want to complain about the Disney era. Oh, there's too many explosions in the Disney era. Oh, the explosions are as big as a house. Oh, why are they always on motorcycle or vehicles? Oh, why aren't they doing this? Oh, the acting's bad. Oh, this and that. I'm just like, come on now. The Disney era was literally the best era, or if not one of the best eras and stuff. And so, like, that's one thing that, using the Sentai footage was very helpful back in these days because, it cut the cost. And I do wonder what Netflix is going to do. And before I get into that, let's talk about the actual Power Ranger show that tried to make more of its own American footage type stuff. I'm talking about the Hasbro Saban era, like collaboration of that Beast Morphers. When Hasbro bought the brand, they decided, you know what, we're gonna make this spectacular, we're gonna make this big, we're gonna throw like a budget on it, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. A lot of Power Ranger fans have been missing. So what did? They went back to civilian outer suit fights. They had some additional cockpit stuff that they filmed. They had a live action morphing sequence. Oh, that's another thing that Saban saved money on, was the morphing sequence. Constantly reusing that stock footage and stuff. They had in suits fighting. They still use Sentai, but they did a little bit more stuff on their own. And then they realized something. Crap, dude, we spent like a lot of money, and some people like this and some people don't, and toy sales aren't that great. So what did they do for Dino Fury? They went back the cheap route. Using more Sentai footage, using that stand-up cockpit thing where they fight all at the same time, which I hate so much. And so the budget started to show, and they went back to using stock morphing footage and stuff. And so I am wondering about the Netflix thing because I watch a lot of American superhero live action shows, whether it be on broadcast TV or streaming. And one thing I've noticed is that no matter what, they do not have the budget of the live action movies. And even though they do have a budget and it's pretty impressive what they can do, you can start to see the restraints here and there. A lot of people who are supposed to fly merely just walk around a lot. You saw on the CW, The Flash, they couldn't always film him like up close running really fast. So what they would do is they would have like just a streak of lightning run around everywhere, and that's how they save money. Or they'll have like a giant like bird's eye view of the city and have him zip around in lightning and stuff. That's how they cut like costs and everything, because they didn't have the budget to do what they did. And when they had to save their budget for stuff like big CGI fights or like big CGI like whatever, like Gorilla Grodd, it didn't look that impressive because it looked like it was on a TV budget, and because it was. Also other shows like Cloak and Dagger and like, a show I liked, it didn't have much of a budget to do what they do in like the comics. Cloak didn't fly, and they just used smoke effects for like his powers and stuff. And because they just really didn't have the budget that they wanted to use. And even streaming is like that. I like Marvel's Runaways, but they didn't even have the budget for Hulu for that. The one girl with blonde hair, she's supposed to have pink sparkly skin, and she's supposed to fly. You only saw that when she powered up, and she rarely powered up. Mostly she just walked around, or she shot energy blasts from her hands looking like a human. They had a dinosaur on there, which they couldn't always use because, in order to make it run around, they had to use like CGI and stuff. And a couple other powers they couldn't really do, and that was on a streaming budget of all things. And, I'm thinking about Stargirl. Stargirl in the season one was phenomenal. It had some really good stories, emotional depth, and it had good CGI and good action. Then, as season two and three came around, their budget got reduced. They couldn't use the giant mech suit no more because it was cost effective. They didn't have Stargirl flying around on her staff because they didn't have the money for it, and a lot of other stuff they could not do because they simply did not have the money for it. And because their budget got reduced after season one, so they went for more emotional and a murder mystery type thing, which I was not interested in. Because one of the reasons about the emotional one in season two is that one of the characters who left the group, she had to be written off the show because she was filming the movie. So you only got one bird's eye view of the emotional storyline of her breaking up with her friend. And that just wasn't good enough for me. Then you have The Boys, which I really enjoy, and they have a really good budget. But then have you ever noticed how rare do they ever use their powers on the show? It's mostly just a lot of heavy-handed talking and walking around. And even a big streaming site like Amazon Prime, and gives them a big budget, it doesn't always go for the special effects or the powers. And when it does go to the special effects and the powers, they have to make sure it looks top notch. And they also have to pay those stars for those big salaries. Then there was Paper Girls, another comic book that was on Amazon Prime. And I didn't know nothing about that. So when I read up about it and stuff like that, it turns out there's a whole lot more stuff that goes on than what I saw in the show. And the special effects they had in the show was not all that impressive because they simply did not have the budget for it. Now, a show like that Lord of the Rings spinoff, yes, they put a huge budget into that to make sure it looks like the movies. But they won't do that for other shows on Amazon Prime. So I wonder about Netflix. Will they do that for the Power Rangers show? Because they're going to need morphing sequences. They're going to need like some really good fight sequences and everything. They're going to need special effect for their powers and their weapons. And of course, the aliens gotta look impressive, and the alien powers gotta look impressive. And then there are the giant kaiju fights and everything. Will they go the CGI route for the monsters and the Zors, or will they actually put a person in a suit? And how often will they actually do that? And especially when the Zords have to come out and assemble and all that other stuff. Are they going to reuse stock footage? Are they going to keep doing it new? Is the morphing sequence going to be reused stock footage? Or are they going to keep having new stuff? And so it really does make you wonder how much of a budget is going to go there. And will they have big fancy stars being on the show? Or will they get a bunch of no-name people and pay them like a small fee or something? And when they do have the CGI, is it going to look impressive? Because once and always had that CGI Megazord monster fight, and fans did not like that. Granted, they had a smaller budget than what the Netflix thing will have, but you do wonder about how much and everything. And so, I just wonder if, and I'm not going to say before, I'm not saying that they don't use Sentai and they're not going to have the budget for it. But, the show needs to have a good budget for something more realistic. If they go the route of the 2017 movie, I'm not going to be happy. I did not want to see a bunch of teens walk around talking about their feelings. Then when they finally do morph, it's off screen. And their fight sequences are very small because it was hard to move in those suits. So it wasn't even that long of a fight sequence. And not only that, but it was just a weird looking Megazord battle with weird looking CGI monsters. I was not thrilled by all of that. And if I see that in the Netflix show, I'm gonna be bored because I want to be entertained. That's the thing. And so people are going to expect good CGI because right now Power Rangers is in a controversial state. You got fans that are pissed that they're not going to be using no Sentai footage. You got other fans that are just worried that the old stuff is coming to an end and the new stuff might not be to their liking. And since Netflix is a big streaming site, if the CGI doesn't look spectacular, people gonna be all like, well, heck, man, even the show did that better, and the show didn't even have a budget. So people are gonna judge the CGI no matter what if it's not to their liking and stuff. And so I really hope they put a good amount of their budget money into this Power Ranger show and not just pass it along, y'all. Like, okay, whatever. It's just here to make toys and sell toys and make kids happy and stuff. Because kids do not watch Power Rangers no more. They just simply don't. And they don't buy the merch and stuff. And, you know, but it's like I said before, they don't even need Sentai or Toku footage to like make Power Rangers. That is not what Power Rangers is. In order for Power Rangers to be Power Rangers, you simply need rainbow colored suits. You need a cast of likable people that you can get along with and have good personalities. You need good storylines. You need good action, martial arts action. You need a giant robot and a giant monster to fight each other. And that's in a morphing sequence. That's really all you need from Power Rangers. And yes, it does take from the Toku and like, you know, the Sentai stuff, because that was its source material, but you don't need the actual Sentai footage to make Power Rangers. There have been times like Once and Always and Forever Red that are considered the highlights of Power Rangers that never use any Sentai footage. And so what, are fans now gonna like dump on Forever Red and stuff like that? No. So it can be done. That's the thing, you know what I'm saying? But it also seems with the reboot that somebody said that Tommy is going to be in the reboot. I think the showrunner might have said that. Or somebody said that online. And if that's true, then they're going back to Mighty Morphin. And I'm tired of them going back to Mighty Morphin. I don't want another JJ Star Trek where they take the characters you love and do something completely radical with them. I don't want that. Create your own team. Create your own characters. And just see, will it work? You know what I'm saying? And to go back on the like, you know, source material, you don't always need source material always to work for something to be successful. Look at the 80s Ninja Turtles like cartoon. It took elements from the source material, but then it changed everything else. And it was a blockbuster of a television series. And it was very successful for many years, nearly a decade. Then you have Captain America Civil War. You know, in the comics, the Civil War story arc was heroes reveal their identities and they start working for the government or SHIELD or something like that. And those who didn't were considered enemies of like, you know, the state or whatever. And because they wanted to keep track of who's doing what and, you know, make their identity accessible to the public to make them more at ease. Then you get the movie that just said, all right, let's just not do that since everybody's identity is already exposed. So what do? Well, okay, if you're a superhero, you can't go to another country and start beating up on the bad guys because you can cause an international incident where people could die, and that's a real bad thing. So the government came in and said, we now own you and everything. And if you don't fight for us, you're public enemy number one. And that's what happened and stuff. And, you know, and it was a very successful movie. So you don't always need, like, you know, the source material in order for it to be a success. And I get why people want the source material. They're purists and everything. And that's totally fine. Like me and Star Trek. I love old Star Trek. I don't like new Star Trek. And when new Star Trek changes stuff from canon of old Star Trek, I get very pissed off because I am a fan and a purist of that. So don't expect like a bunch of crazy CGI and stuff like that in case they don't have the big budget. So just think small screen, like superhero show, like stuff on the CW or things on streaming sites, things like that. Because I speculate if they put, say, a big budget on the show for like spectacular special effects, stuff like that, and for whatever reason it doesn't do good, well, they're gonna either cancel it or in the next season reduce the budget, meaning less CGI. And then of course, if that doesn't do well, then they'll just can the entire thing, and then sadly Power Rangers will be no more. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.